Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to today's session of Target Prelims 2023, where today we shall be having a discussion with regards to how to prepare for your subject of geography in under 90 days, especially keeping the prelims examination in your mind. So today we shall be trying to break up the subject of geography into various different parts, and we shall try to understand the importance and the amount of emphasis that you need to put as a candidate in different areas in order to maximize your scoring chances and your scoring ability in the prelims examination, because this subject is particularly important for your prelims. But before we dive into the portion of strategy, a couple of quick announcements with regards to the Target Prelims program that we have been running. So here, in the entire gamut of Target Prelims 2023, we have curated certain special courses and certain special kinds of programs for the candidates. So here, first of all, you have the entire strategy series with regards to the preparation in under 90 days for various different subjects that we are holding on. That is something which is live on YouTube, and I'm sure you are attending them and you are liking them as well. Then once this gets over, then immediately after that, we shall be launching a discussion for the current affair topics, whereby we shall be discussing 400 plus current affairs topics which have been in relevance, which have been in any form of discussion for the past 1 year. And thereby we shall be dividing the portion of current affairs as per the headings of the different subjects involved. For example, for geography, for environment ecology, for science and tech. In each of these areas, we shall be discussing the current affairs relevant issues. And that is something which shall be available on the BYJU'S Exam Prep app. And this program will be continuing from 9th of March to around 14th of April, whereby you can brush up whatever portions of current affairs you have missed out, or maybe that needs some amount of revision. Once that gets over, then we shall be discussing the MCQs and the PYQs, the previous year questions of the prelims and important MCQs which can be expected from various topics. And again, that session is something which shall be present on YouTube, and in between 15th of April to 15th of May from 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. you can attend this. It can be like a crash course all over again. And eventually, we are going to bring you a special course whereby we shall be discussing the questions that have appeared in All India Prelims 2023 Open Mock Test. And that is again something which is going to be there on the app. So this is something which shall be available to all of you free of cost. But then overall, it would be helpful if you like the content, then please don't forget to click on the like, share, and subscribe button so that you get an idea about any new content which is being released on the channel for your better preparation. Now, this particular portion of strategy about how to prepare under 90 days. Now, this is something that we have been running since 1st of March. So already the strategy for polity, current affairs, and economy, they have been discussed in the previous 3 days. And in case you have not attended these videos are available on our channel and you can attend that. Today, we are going to discuss the strategy for geography. Tomorrow, we are going to have a session for environment, ecology, and science and tech. And then day after tomorrow, we shall have a strategy session for history and how to prepare for that. Now, having said that, now let us take a look into how do we prepare for the subject of geography. Because geography as a subject many of the times often creates a certain kind of nightmare in few of the candidates regarding the type of unexpected questions that you find. And this is further exaggerated by the fact that even in the UPSC notification, when you take a look at the syllabus of geography, there is not much information that the notification gives or throws at you. Notification plainly mentions geography of India and the world. And that oftentimes leaves us in a lurch regarding which direction should we follow in order to prepare to our level best. So let us analyze that and let us try to understand based upon certain previous patterns that how to sharpen our preparation in these final days. Now, before we initiate that, let us set an agenda for this discussion as well. So here, we would like this discussion to be interactive. So any kind of doubts that you have, please feel free to ask them. Any issues with regards to how to improvise your geography preparation, which areas to focus upon, Any issues and any problems that you face, please put it for us and we shall be addressing the questions as we move ahead. Majority of the questions shall be addressed after we have completed the entire discussion and the entire strategy which needs to be followed. Now, here, when we talk about the preparation of the subject of the geography, here we have already talked about the fact that in notification you just get that one single sentence, geography of India and the world. And thereby you get questions with regards to Indian geography as well and world geography as well. And oftentimes we don't get an idea which area do we focus upon more. So here what we can do, ideally as a candidate who has got around 80 to 90 days left on his or her hands, here you also have to understand that you have to prioritize all the subjects together. It is not only a test or an examination of geography. So there is no point going over vast different amount of materials that you have not come across till now. One basic rule that you need to remember as of now is that at this stage of your preparation, please don't open any new material. No new material should be opened up as of now because that might end up confusing you and the return on that will be very limited and you could use that time in order to better your preparation in other subjects which can give you a good return or even pointed preparation in areas of geography which can help you yield good dividends. So here first of all what you can do is you can classify the subject or break the subject into different parts. Now when I say classification of the subject, the broader classification that can be done for the subject is that of physical geography. And it is in this portion of physical geography where oftentimes you end up finding questions with regards to the world as well. So that is where physical geography will consist of the portions which are asked with regards to world geography as well. And then the other important portion is obviously going to be the Indian geography. Now in both of these we will analyze that what are the areas that you have to look into, what are the low-hanging fruits there, and by the way, this is not the classification into static and dynamic. You have to be very mindful of that. Oftentimes when you prepare a subject, the easy division is that divide the static portion, divide the dynamic portion, prepare the static and keep yourself updated with the current affairs. That is the normal strategy that you follow. Here, once you are classifying the subject like this, please understand each one of them will have their own static portion and each one of them will have their own dynamic portion associated with it as well. Indian geography will also have its static portion and Indian geography will also have its dynamic portion. Okay? Now, how to proceed with it? How to prepare individually each of these areas? So, when we talk about each of them, starting with the portion of, let's say, physical geography, let us assume, and I hope that this is an assumption that fits most of you. So, let us assume that most of you have read the portion of physical geography at least once. Right? At least once you would have gone through the entire portion of physical geography. Maybe the revision would not have happened till now, but at least you know that what is geomorphology, what is climatology, what is oceanography. This amount of basic classification, I hope, is there. So in the portion of physical geography, the broader classification that you will find is that of geomorphology. Then you'll find the classification in climatology and also oceanography. Now, which amongst these do you focus upon more for your prelims examination? Now, please keep one thing in mind. Simultaneously, there are dynamic and current affairs portions which are emerging in each of these areas. So please don't put your blinkers upon that, okay, current affairs is going to be something very different. No. It is something which is going to be associated with these issues itself. In geomorphology, you have various different topics that you have to read. For example, you need to get an idea with regards to what are the ice ages that the planet has gone through. Right? We do need to understand the glacial cycles that the planet has gone through. because this is an area where UPSC has asked multiple questions before. Then, with regards to the important theories, be it the continental drift theory, the plate tectonics, these are also important. Okay. Then other than that, in geomorphology, you get portions with regards to earthquakes, volcanoes, and also with regards to landforms. Okay. This is the entire encapsulation of the portion of geomorphology. Now, in this area, first of all of them deal with the basic conceptualization of the subject. Once you understand them, it is very difficult to forget each one of them. So here, first of all, analyze that which of these areas are more important. Now here, for example, the aspect with regards to continental drift theory and plate tectonics, that is particularly important. But when we talk about continental drift theory and plate tectonics, do we need to give equal importance and equal emphasis to both of them while preparing for the prelims? The answer is no. The portion of continental drift theory that you see, the entire conceptualization of the theory, the hypothesis, the assumption, all of them which were made by Alfred Wagner, that is something which is more relevant for your mains examination. Having said that, a prime ideation is important. You should be aware that, okay, at one point of time, you had a large supercontinent that broke into multiple smaller parts, and that is something which is going on. So that is all that you need to know about continental drift theory. Generally, you don't get questions asked in the prelims from the portion of continental drift theory, and that has been an accepted fact. With regards to plate tectonics, this is where you have to pay attention and you have to emphasize on this. Why the portion of plate tectonics and which portion in plate tectonics? So when you discuss the topic of plate tectonics, you would come across the various different facts. For example, you have the convergence of plates, and even in convergence, you have the cases of oceanic-oceanic convergence, oceanic-continental convergence, continental-continental convergence, divergence, transform plate movements. There are various different types of plate movements which do happen. And here you also have the aspect of major plates and minor plates that you would come across. Major and minor plates. So this is something which is relevant. This is something which UPSC repeats. It frequents this particular portion in the prelims examination time and time again. So what kind of question do you expect from this area? You generally expect a kind of a question where the candidate is asked upon the fact that, for example, if you have an oceanic-oceanic convergence, will that lead to formation of a fold mountain or an oceanic trench? So it is again with regards to the basic concept. Again, what kind of convergences or divergences do lead to volcanic eruptions? What kind of convergences or plate movements do lead to earthquakes? There again, you will find this topic to be asked in the prelims paper. Now, again, if you marry it with the portion of current affairs, you have to understand that recently we have experienced massive earthquake which has occurred in the region of Turkey and Syria. And you had repeated earthquakes which occurred there. So, ideally, when a candidate thinks about it, the normal approach is that, okay, I will learn that where the earthquake has occurred, and that is my preparation which is done for current affairs. But that is an absolutely wrong approach. You are not here preparing for a lower grade examination or a state service examination. UPSC does not ask you a direct question that where is it that the earthquake has occurred, Turkey, India, like that. No. UPSC will go into the depth of it. That if an earthquake has occurred, why has it occurred? I hope that we are aware that it has occurred because of the relative plate movements which have occurred in between the Eurasian plate, African plate, and also the minor Anatolian plate. So here the idea with regards to what is the minor plate, which are the major plates involved, and also it is in this region where the African plate is moving ahead, and as a result of that, you have the Mediterranean also shrinking, and that is why in the southern part of Italy, you have so many volcanoes also, which have been observed in the past year. So this conceptualization with regards to the interconnecting between the plate tectonics and the atmospheric phenomena, or rather the geographical phenomena which we experience as a result of that, that is also very relevant. So from here you can expect a question dealing with the basic concepts. So those basic concept questions, they cannot be ignored at all. Now, when we talk about the landforms, and before landforms, even in the case of earthquakes and volcanoes, there also you will come across many different terminologies, many different important technicalities that ends up confusing you. For example, when we talk about, let's say, a volcanic eruption, then there are different concepts. For example, what is a hotspot? What is a caldera? What is a cinder cone? What is a stratovolcano? So in all these areas, in the case of earthquake, what is the epicenter? What is the focus? Where is it that the earthquakes occur? Now, in all these areas where you find a lot of technical terminologies in place, if you have been able to understand the basic concept, fair enough. You can go into the exam hall with a fair degree of confidence. But in case you are finding that hard to consume, and in volcanoes, you also have to remember the properties which are exhibited by acidic magma, the basic magma, which flows easily, which does not flow easily. So that again is something which you can compile on an A4 sheet paper. Ideally, I would advise you to have this compilation as early as possible in a very brief manner. Please don't have it in a very expansive manner, in a very brief manner. And then keep on looking at that every 3 to 4 days. Thereby, by the time that you reach the end of April, this is something which is going to be imprinted on the back of your mind. Then comes the portions of landforms. Now, in the portion of landforms, again, you will come across landforms created as a result of river action, landforms created as a result of glacial action, wind action, etc. All of these are going to be relevant for your prelims. Now, how do you prepare for these landforms? Do you start learning the definition of all of them? No. In the case of the landforms, two important factors need to be kept in mind. The first, that which agent of nature has created or has caused the creation of that landform. For example, oxbow lakes and meanders, they are caused by the river action. For example, when we talk about drumlins, arêtes, horns, they are created as a result of glacial action. So the agent of nature which has created that landform, that is something which should be crystal clear. Then followed by whether it is erosional or depositional in nature. So here again, you can prepare a chart on the A4 sheet paper for a quick revision. That is always advisable. So agent of nature which has caused that, and also whether that landform is erosional or depositional. Okay? Now, this is with regards to geomorphology. In general, if you look at the normal trend, but again, UPSC is very, very unpredictable. But still, if you follow the normal trend, in general, geomorphology is one of those areas where you will expect one question or a couple of questions dealing with the basic concepts. So if your concepts are in place, you should be in a good place. Now then comes climatology. Climatology is very, very important for your examination of prelims, because every year, regardless of the pattern, regardless of what kind of random question UPSC frames, climatology is always on stress. Even if you analyze the previous year questions, you will find that climatology has been stressed upon. So in the portion of climatology, you have many important areas. For example, atmosphere. Now in atmosphere, you have the aspect of the layers of atmosphere. And individual layers have very distinct properties. The troposphere will have a very distinct property, very distinct characteristics of temperature change as compared to stratosphere, as compared to mesosphere and thermosphere. You should be aware that it is above the region of mesosphere that we do observe the presence of ionosphere. And what is that ionosphere? Why that gets created? That is again something which should be crystal clear in our minds. So the basics with regards to atmosphere. what causes heating, where is it that the ultraviolet rays of the sun are filtered out, because we know that we have the ozone layer in the region of stratosphere, and it is in that stratosphere where you will experience that the ultraviolet rays coming to the earth, that is something which is filtered out. So that again is something which should be kept in mind, because this is a question which is oftentimes repeated. And here with regards to atmosphere, when you are studying this, keep an idea about how is it that the lapse rate behaves, in the sense that when you move up the height in the region of troposphere, do we experience a reduction in temperature or increase in temperature? Similar in the case of stratosphere and mesosphere as well. Definition and learning of definitions is something you should absolutely abandon. That is not the preparation at all which is going to help you. So many of the candidates have the habit of rote learning the definition. UPSC twists the statement, and that is where it will confuse you very easily if you have simply and basically just learnt and gulped down the definition. So please don't do that. Try to understand it. Why is it that in the continental areas you experience greater variation of temperature? Why is it that in the coastal areas you experience a moderation in temperature? So that temperature change, that is an important part. So temperature change, along with the fact that you also have the concept of inversion of temperature. So what is that inversion of temperature? When does it occur? What is the surface inversion? What is upper air inversion, upper air mechanical inversion, upper air thermal inversion, frontal inversion, valley inversion? These concepts you need to polish upon. The areas with regards to, for example, heat, budget and so on, that is something that you can leave. That is something that you will focus upon again come the time of the mains examination. But as of now, please don't involve much of your energy, or don't spend a lot of your energy learning the facts with regards to heat, budget and so on. Then comes the important portion with regards to permanent winds. Permanent winds and pressure belts. So, for example, when we talk about trade winds, in which areas do you experience the trade winds to move, right? Among which latitude do we experience these trade winds? And trade winds originate from subtropical high pressure belt. That is again something which should be understood. Then, for example, westerlies. In between which latitude do you experience the movement of westerlies? Here UPSC had framed a question that westerlies move from around 30° north to 60° south. While many of us, we know that it moves between 30° north and 60° north and 30° south and 60° south. It is here that the wordings are oftentimes interchanged in order to lead the candidates to commit silly mistakes. So you have to be very, very watchful for the tricks that are laid in front of you. Then, after this, once you have done this, then the basics of phenomena. Basics of atmospheric phenomena. Which kind of phenomena I'm talking about? For example, cyclones, tropical cyclones. What is the formation of tropical cyclone? Why is it that the tropical cyclones will be formed only over water, whereas temperate cyclones, which are observed across Europe, across North America, that is something which gets formed and created both over land as well as above water body? That is something you need to focus upon. Then, for example, Enso cycles, El Nino, La Nina cycles. Now, in the case of Enso cycles, what portion of the Pacific gets warmed up, what portion of the Pacific gets heated, and their implication in terms of the Indian monsoon also. That is something one has to look into. Then, for example, you have the Indian Ocean dipole, what that is, Madden-Julian oscillation, what is that, jet streams and their role, their involvement in altering the climatic conditions across. Now, in all these, before moving into the complications of the concepts, it is always advisable to stick first of all to the basics with regards to what these jet streams are, where do you find the existence of these jet streams, where do you find the formation of tropical cyclones, then in which portions of the planet, in which portions of the oceans do you find a lack of tropical cyclones. So these basic facts, these basic concepts should be very clear. Climatology is going to be the most important unit of your physical geography. It is through this climatology that UPSC frames questions which satisfy even the portions of world geography. So what you might eye as a question coming from world geography might have its origin from the basics of climatology, provided you have a keen eye to differentiate them. Now here you also have the portion of climatic classification. Now in the portion of climatic classification, that is the Köppen's classification, which is relevant for your prelims examination and also for your general studies in general, all you need to study is the Köppen's classification. Now in Köppen's classification, you will find various different types of codes which have been given. For example, AM climate, AW climate, AF climate, BS, then you have CA and so on. Now, please don't end up learning these codes. This is not asked in the examination of prelims. Then what you need to focus in the portion of climatic classification, or do you need to study this at all? Yes, you do need to study this, but you need to focus or sharpen your attention towards the portion. For example, in equatorial type of climate, when is it that you receive rainfall? In marine type of climate, we receive rainfall throughout the year, but why is it so? It is because of the onset of the westerlies. What are the features of Mediterranean climate that it leads to rainfall only during the winter months, whereas the summer season is dry? So these basic conceptualizations should be focused upon. Then we come to oceanography. In oceanography, you'll find simple questions which are asked, and generally sometimes you will find that sometimes UPSC skips this portion as well in the prelims. Having said that, it is not advisable to skip this portion, because if a question is asked from oceanography, it will be a basic question and you cannot miss out attempting these basic questions, because your competition, they will not miss out on such questions. So which areas to focus upon? Here you have to focus upon ocean currents. Okay. Now in ocean currents, the types, whether it is a warm current, whether it is a cold current, and which region of the planet are we experiencing these ocean currents, whether it is in the Atlantic Ocean, whether it is in the Pacific, Indian Ocean, and so on. So that is something which should be clear. Then with regards to the physical properties of oceanic water. Now physical properties of oceanic water indicate what? It indicates temperature and salinity. Where is it that temperature will increase? What factors will lead to the reduction in temperature? Whether when we go to the depth, that is when the temperature increases or decreases. What is the case with the salinity? For example, melting of ice sheets, that leads to a reduction in salinity. And these are the important things that you need to focus upon. This is a kind of a low-hanging fruit, guys. So in physical geography portion, if you have to stress upon it, maximum focus should be given on climatology, right? Regardless of anything else, if let's say right now your level of preparation is not that good in climatology and there are many areas which end up confusing you, I would suggest to you that go through the basic concepts of climatology, very basic concepts, and try to repeat that as much as possible, because questions will be asked from this, that is for sure. Then the second amount of attention or the second priority should be given to geomorphology, and then you come to the portion of oceanography. Why I am saying geomorphology is because you can expect questions from the portions of plate tectonics, because in the past couple of years and 2 to 3 years, you have been experiencing, and we all have been experiencing, you would have read in current affairs as well, there are frequent earthquakes and frequent volcanic eruptions that have been happening across the planet. So all these earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, they are basically a resultant of these plate tectonics itself. So if you are aware about the plate tectonics, that gives you a significant amount of advantage. And then shift your priority. Once you have done this, then shift your priority to the ocean currents and then temperature and salinity. So in that order, if you refer to it, it becomes slightly easier for you. Now, then we come to the portion of Indian geography. But before that, let me take a couple of questions here. So, one question by Meghna, is NCERT enough for prelims? Absolutely yes. A consistent revision and repetition of NCERT is more than enough. And I would suggest all of you that shun all the large and the voluminous books that you are consuming and rectifying. Don't use that. The basic NCERTs of class 11th and 12th is more than sufficient. Okay? And that is again something which has been asked by Braille Jebra, a very interesting name. Then Kunal, for you, I would suggest that revise that, what you have covered, the basic portion of it, along with the additional reading materials, etc. Once you have covered the class PPTs and all. So just the basic of it, keep on revising that, repeating that, until and unless you are able to solve the questions. And then after that, look into current affairs. Mapping, is it necessary? We'll come to that, but please understand, for the portion of mapping, please don't follow the approach that you start learning all the Indian cities north to south, all the world capitals east to west. Please never follow that approach. Ideally, you will find, and you can take back or take a look at the past 12 years question, 15 years question. Whenever a question regarding mapping has been asked, it is one of those areas which have been in discussion in current affairs throughout the past year. That is why UPSC is asking those mapping portions. So when you are preparing for general studies, just the basic adherence to current affairs, more than sufficient. And then Sambhav, are marathon sessions helpful for revision? Yes, overall it will give you an insight, a deeper knowledge with regards to which are the topics which are important. It might be that few of the topics you have missed out, and with the help of the marathon sessions, it will also help you further enrich your revision. The revision of the concepts associated with the current affairs as well. For example, suppose in geography, if we discuss the portion of earthquakes which have rocked the region of Turkey and Syria, we shall also be discussing the relevant plates which have been involved there. If there has been a cloud burst which has occurred, we shall be discussing the basic causes which can lead to the cloud burst. If you have a hurricane or a cyclone which is formed, there also the basic concept shall be dealt with. So it will mean a kind of a comprehensive preparation overall. Okay? And during important during important current affairs topic lecture, yes, we have already answered that, Rutvik. And how can we link physical geography to current affairs? That is a question from Kibria. So here, basically, the physical geography portion, once you have understood, as I have told you, that if you have any two important plates due to which volcanic eruption or an earthquake has occurred, you should take a note of that. For example, if you have the aspect, when we come to Indian geography, that is where the portion of current affairs becomes much more relevant. But then, in the portion of physical geography, climatology is the area where many of the times the portion of current affairs comes into interplay. Okay? Now, Lagrange point, Goldilocks zone, all these, this is something you will study in the portion of science and tech. For example, in science and tech, when you are reading about, let's say, Aditya L1 mission, you will read about the Lagrange point associated with it. So there you need to have the basic information and the basic ideation of that. GC Leong, if you have not studied till now, then please don't open it up. Anyways, GC Leong has got a very restricted use, only in some portion of physical geography. So if you have not covered it till now, please don't read it. NCERTs are sufficient for general studies, both for your prelims as well as for your mains exam. Keep that in mind. Okay? Asif, see, if you have taken a look at the tablet lecture, more than sufficient. There we have covered all the portions of the NCERTs. Revise that, repeat that, and make sharper notes and make sharper analysis at this stage of time. That will be sufficient. Okay? Now, we come to the portion of Indian geography here. Now, in the portion of Indian geography, Here, you get a significant role of current affairs or the dynamic portion as well. That is where the current affairs or the dynamic portion that you see being asked in the paper, it is from the portion of Indian geography where it is generally asked. Now, Indian geography in itself is very vast and very diverse. What are the important areas that are covered or that need to be covered? So, if I list it down in terms of the priority associated and given in UPSC, so most priority is given nowadays to the portion of climate or Indian climate, and also agriculture. These are the areas where UPSC has been focusing upon quite stringently and quite prominently since 2018 onwards. So you cannot ignore these areas. Now, in Indian climate, it is not sufficient to know, my dear friends, that India experiences monsoon, rainfall, India experiences a warm summer, a cold winter. No. Here you need to understand, for example, all the aspects with regards to when we talk about monsoon. So what are the factors which influence the monsoon? The factors at play. And when we talk about factors which influence the Indian monsoon, this is an interlinking to the portion of atmospheric phenomena of climatology. Because factors influencing the Indian monsoon, there you will have to study the role of subtropical westerly jet stream. There you have to study the role of maybe Indian Ocean dipole, maybe Enso cycles which are at play, right? The tropical easterly jet stream, the role of Tibetan highland, the role of Mascarene high, the high pressure zone created in southern hemisphere. So all these factors, that should be clear. Why? What kind of question do you expect from here? So a very simple kind of a question. For example, UPSC has asked this earlier, that is El Nino or La Nina, do they increase the rainfall in India or reduce the rainfall? Then, for example, the jet streams, do they have a role to play in Indian monsoon or are they inconsequential? That is something which is important. Then, in Indian climate, oftentimes we ignore another very important area which is not that huge, but in terms of the frequency with which questions have been asked both in prelims and mains, that becomes very important, and that is western disturbance. What are these western disturbances? What impact do they have on the local climate, local conditions, and also with regards to the aspects of when we talk about western disturbance, do they help the cropping pattern during the winter months? Then do they help mustard, wheat, etc.? So that is something which should be clear. What are these and how are they carried and brought over to India? Then in the portion of agriculture, here you need to be knowing the crop types or the crops, major crops, okay? Don't start exploring the crops of, for example, what are the necessary conditions for growing of green gram or barley. No. The major crops, for example, this year, when we are celebrating International Year of Millets, the world is celebrating that. So millets become important this year. So that is something, for example, millets, different types of millets. You have jowar, bajra, ragi, what are the conditions that they require, and also whether they provide enough amount of nourishment or not. So that is something which should be clear. Then, which are the water guzzling crops which consume water in large quantums, for example, sugarcane, rice, or paddy. So again, this is something which should be understood. 6th to 10th NCERT, Shivansh, Saurav, do we need to cover 6th to 10th NCERT? Not very important. Okay, if you are covering 11th and 12th, more than sufficient. Okay, so agriculture, and here again you have to put some attention to the dynamic portion. In what aspects? The newer technologies. If any newer technologies for irrigation, if any newer technology for crop monitoring, for moisture monitoring, if that has come into play, it should be looked into. Then after that, slightly lower on the priority after that comes your basic portion of drainage. That is the river systems. Now here, UPSC has already asked multiple times about Brahmaputra. Ganga is a major river where the tributaries are very easily known. So these are the areas which you can normally eliminate naturally. But the major rivers of the country, for example, Indus, Ganga, Brahmaputra, Godavari, Krishna, Mahanadi, Kaveri, these major rivers and their tributaries should be looked into. Now, not necessarily per se that you learn it by heart, each one of them, because that will be a very tough task for each one of you. But you should have enough amount of recollection so that you are able to figure out, for example, that Indravati is not a tributary of Mahanadi and it is a tributary of Godavari. For example, when we talk about Shivnath, it is not a tributary of Krishna, it is a tributary of Mahanadi. So that kind of a basic aspect of drainage covering, that is something you can do, and that is all that you should restrict it to. Okay? Then comes the portion of physiography. Physiography. Now, the physical divisions that we have. Now, for example, we have smaller areas, Bundelkhand, Baghelkhand, where is it that you have Maikal Hills. Now, in the portion of physiography, I would suggest to you, whichever source that you are referring to, whichever material that you are referring to, immediately after referring that material, simultaneously keep your atlas by your side. So, always study along with the atlas. Always study with the help of the atlas. That is something which is going to enrich your overall understanding, and also this is the kind of a question which UPSC will ask. Nowadays, you would have seen that the pattern has changed in the sense that certain questions are asked that how many pairs are matched correctly, 1 pair only, 2 pair only, 3 pair only, and so on. So thereby, the focus should be to understand that a particular physiographic division, if we are talking about, for example, Chota Nagpur Plateau, where is it that the Chota Nagpur Plateau is situated? Where is it that the region of Dandakaranya is situated? Where is it when we talk about the Sahyadris? Where is it, and amongst how many states do they spread into? So that is the portion of physiography that you have to be aware of, and this should be done along with the atlas. Here UPSC will not ask you that what is the average elevation of the Indian plains, what is the average elevation of the Peninsular Plateau. Such kind of questions are never asked in UPSC, so please don't start learning these facts. Try to minimize the amount of facts that you are learning. Your preparation will be much better. And then comes the portions of minerals, soil. Okay? Now, a couple of times UPSC has asked about which of these are minor minerals, which of these are major minerals. So your basic understanding about mineral distribution, that should be sufficient. Yes, you do get a certain kind of factual questions here and there, but then there again, please don't get waylaid and start learning all the mineral list. It is not worth it. The return on investment of the time that you will invest in that, that is going to be very minimal. Okay, so ideally, for example, here again, you can link it with the portion of current affairs. For example, recently there has been a finding of lithium in the region of Jammu and Kashmir, in Riyasi district. Now, UPSC is not going to ask you, where is it that lithium has been found? It can, however, ask you that in India, lithium is found in which areas? Or, when we talk about the world, what do we understand by lithium triangle? Or, what is the role of lithium when it comes to modern tech? So from lithium, you can have multifarious questions which can be asked covering different areas. So in minerals, any particular mineral in discussion, or whether the government has been talking about it, or whether it is relevant for the future, there look at the peripheral areas. In the aspect of soil as well, just the basics. All the soil lack nitrogen in India. Drill it in your mind. Oftentimes, most of the questions asked about soil can be solved and eliminated using this basic methodology. Please don't learn the portion that whether it is rich in phosphate, poor in calcium, rich in no, don't do that. Because again, it is an endless loop that you will get into, and chances are that that kind of a question is not to be asked. Because again I would repeat, you are not only appearing for geography as a subject. You have to study the other areas also, other subjects as well. So there again, you have to focus upon these particular portions. Now, when we talk about few of the other tidbits for prelims, which are the portions that you have to focus, here, let me talk about the maps. Maps are oftentimes the ones which give us nightmares, that how do we cover maps. So very easy portion that I will give you. When it comes to India, the basics should be clear. For example, when we talk about India, we do know that Tropic of Cancer passes through almost the center of the country. So which are the states through which it passes through? You have the states like Rajasthan as well, which initially on the kind of a basic assumption, you will never come to the solution that yes, Rajasthan is also the one where the Tropic of Cancer passes through, but it does pass through that. So which are the states through which Tropic of Cancer passes through? Then which are the capital cities closer to the Tropic of Cancer? Then after that, what is the standard meridian? Which are the states which pass through the standard meridian in the case of India, by which we follow the Indian Standard Time, right? So the states through which it passes through. Then the boundaries of the state. Boundaries of the state and also international boundaries. For example, if you take a look at the state of West Bengal, it shares its boundary with 3 nations, right? Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh. Similarly, when you consider the state of Arunachal Pradesh, it also ends up sharing its boundary with 3 nations, that is Bhutan, China, and in the case of Myanmar as well. So this should be clear. Madhya Pradesh, for example, shares its boundary with which different states? That basic should be clear. With regards to mapping that you see and the questions asked in mapping, for example, last year, if you would have observed the question paper, then in last year you had the question that Afghanistan shares its boundary with which countries? Does this mean that UPSC wants you to learn all the countries and all their boundaries? No. It asked that question because Afghanistan had been in discussion because of the NATO troop pullout. Then it also had asked about the islands. So islands which were in significant amount of controversy. So always when you talk about the aspect of world map. So first of all, look at the boundaries, or rather the current affairs. Okay. For example, when we say that Armenia and Azerbaijan, they have not been on the friendliest of their terms and they have engaged themselves in repeated wars. Why? Because of the region of Nagorno-Karabakh. So what is that region of Nagorno-Karabakh? Where is that situated? For example, right now when we talk about the Ukraine situation, UPSC is never going to ask you that Russia has attacked which country. But then near Ukraine, you have the region of Black Sea. So what are the important smaller water bodies, the smaller straits that connect it? So the straits and the small seas, that again should be focused upon. Straits and seas. Why I'm talking about straits is because if you analyze the previous year question, UPSC had asked this in the mains as well. And this is something which it has been repeating. Why? Because across the globe, the entire world is facing difficulties with regards to freedom of movement. So all the straits, all the various different isthmus, the small seas, they have gained a significant importance here. So that is something which should be looked into. And that is where you can basically restrict yourself. Okay? So please do not try to overcomplicate your preparation. Remember one basic thing, my dear friends. Before we move on into the question, remember one basic thing. Smaller the amount of content that you have to revise, better your revision is going to be. And please don't base your preparation based upon 1 or 2 factual questions which UPSC has asked earlier. If UPSC has asked which of them are minor minerals maybe in 2019 or 2020, does not mean you start learning all those minor minerals, because UPSC has not asked that question again. Maybe even if UPSC asks it again, you would have to invest almost around a week or two just to learn that entire list. And chances are that that question might not appear. Even if it appears, still it is so cumbersome, you can end up committing a negative marks there. So always there are certain factual questions that even UPSC does not expect you to solve. So go into the exam hall with this basic mindset. Every year around 12 to 15 to 16 questions are asked from the portion of geography. Your attempt or your idea should be that amongst those 12 to 15, I should get around 9 to 10 of them correct. And at max, a couple of them negative, but not more than that. If you go with the mindset that out of 15 I will get it correct, that will be a kind of a mindset which will end up earning you a lot of negative marks. So please don't do that. Please don't chase facts. Stick to the basics. Revise as much as possible. Okay? Now, with that, let us take few of the questions. So, best source for Indian geography, Swarnima, again, the portion of NCERT or the basic book of NCERT is more than sufficient. Then, which atlas is good? Any atlas. Any atlas available in the market. You have to be aware of the basics. No atlas will give you the insight that, okay, I am showing you a part of disputed territory which no other atlas has shown. No. Any atlas, especially when you are preparing for general studies, any atlas solves that purpose. And Poonam, we have already replied that around 12 to 15 questions are asked in prelims in general, and that varies from 12 to sometimes 16. Human geography part, that is what we have discussed, right, Geeta? That is what we have discussed in the portion of Indian geography. So when we come to the portion of, let's say, population, etc., here you generally don't get a question from that. Now, if the census figures would have been released, you could have expected a lot more questions coming from the portion of population, etc. But because those figures have not been released, there are absolutely minimalistic chances of a question being asked from the census of 2011. So with regards to the basic dynamics, that whether we are a youthful population or not, I hope that much is clear. NCERT is also enough for optional? No, absolutely not. Can we rely, Chelsea, can we rely on BYJU'S daily current affairs completely? See, if you have not been preparing for 2024, for 2023, if you have not been reading newspapers till now, and you have only been relying on certain sources, now is not the time to pick up the newspaper. Those of you preparing for 2024, always I will advise you to pick up the newspaper, revise it with the monthly current affairs magazine. As many revisions of the monthly magazine that you do, better your preparation should be. Ideally, you should aim for having minimum of 5 revisions before you enter into the exam hall. What should be the size of our notes? As brief, at max 3 to 4 pages, not more than that. Then new NCERT or old NCERT? Old NCERT would do. Even new NCERT is okay for 11th and 12th. Current affairs map-based question, I would suggest to you that for that, the monthly magazines, when you read the monthly magazine, for example, you come across the portion of international relations, be honest to yourself. For example, are you aware that what are the countries surrounding Caspian? If Caspian is in discussion, are you aware about the countries surrounding Black Sea? Because Russia and Ukraine are in discussion. If not, open up the atlas and look at that. Okay? Current affairs, with regards to if you are lacking in current affairs, pick up the monthly magazine, any of the sources that you rely upon, that you feel is reliable, pick that up, revise that for the past 1 year. Each of the monthly magazines, minimum of 5 revisions. Okay? Distribution like coal distribution, etc. No. See, the basic ideation, UPSC had asked this in 2018 with regards to iron distribution. Now there again, iron for example, coal for example, the basic idea I hope is there. You don't need to learn the exact mines and so on. But I hope that this basic idea is there that, okay, in Chota Nagpur Plateau, in the region of Chhattisgarh, some parts of Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, you do get coal. right? Some anthracite is found in Jammu Kashmir. So obviously, if this much basic idea is there, more than sufficient. Otherwise, just cover these basic portions. NCRTs are enough, again I'll say. Okay? Then geography or NCRT of 10th or 12th. See, 11th and 12th NCRT more than sufficient. If till now you have not picked up the book of geography for 2023, you are already in a significantly difficult predicament that you are facing. I would suggest to you, humbly pick up the NCRTs of class 11th, and these are because these are for school-going kids. That is how these NCRTs have been crafted and created. You will never face much difficulty in understanding that if you are appearing for the prelims this year. If not, you have the world before you and the all lot of time before you, so you can use the entire year to study. Different climates and the zones like Mediterranean, etc., that is something you need to look into. So when we talk about the climate types, so what is it that you have to study here? So climatic classification. What is it that you have to study in this? So the codes provided by Köppen, AW, AF, AM, not at all important. Here you have to focus upon what do we mean by equatorial climate, where you have everyday rainfall which occurs in the evening. Then, for example, what is it that you experience in the region of savanna, right, which is also referred to as AW type of climate. Now here you have grassland ecosystem. So what kind of grasslands do occur and why is it that the grasses do occur? Then, for example, British type of climate, British type, then China type of climate, then you have, for example, Mediterranean type of climate. Right? So in all these, look at the overall trend of temperature and rainfall. This is again an area which is a low-hanging fruit because very frequently questions are repeated from this portion. Okay? For mains again, for general studies, NCRT and current affairs would be sufficient. Economic geography, try to study it with the portion of current affairs itself. Now, when we talk about the portion of economic geography, as we have focused upon already, agriculture, look at the dynamic portion, look at the different types of crops, minerals, the basic distribution, soil, basic distribution. Okay? Then I have selected geography as an optional. Okay, so for optional, you need to go to go for different books for each of the different areas. So for optional, even for physical, even for the human geography, everything you need to cover in very significant amount. This is just for the general studies. Vishak, after prelims, 3 months enough for passing geography mains examination? Yes, absolutely yes. Kunal Mittal, I am sure by now you would have taken a decision with regards to which optional you are choosing. It is not a matter of how much you score in the prelims. It might be that you might be very good in a subject, but you are not performing that well in prelims. So please don't base your decision based upon that. Vasu, we cannot say, and it would be absolutely foolish on my part to predict the cutoff for the examination of 2023, which has still not been held. But for every logical standpoint of view that you take a look into, you will expect the cutoff to be around the same area that it has revolved in. That is roughly around 100 plus minus 5, unless and until the paper drastically changes. If it becomes very difficult, it will reduce. If it becomes very easy, it will increase. But then, obviously, nobody knows that. Wildlife sanctuaries, please don't learn it. Please don't learn the national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. Please don't do that. Only the ones which have been in news for the past 1 year, be it wildlife sanctuaries, national parks, biosphere reserves, or even the portion of tiger reserves, only the ones which have been in current affairs. So that tells you how important the current affairs is. Okay? Mock test depends. See, the purpose of the mock test is not to see how high you score. The purpose of the mock test is to improvise your mental conditioning at that point of time, whether you are able to concentrate for 2 long hours, whether you are able to figure out the answers even in questions which you don't know immediately, whether you are able to solve them logically, and use the mock tests to extract much more information, because each of the questions will have 4 options. 1 will be correct, the 3 incorrect one. What are the information that they give to you? So with that aspect, if you approach the mock test, only then it will be healthy. Otherwise, if you are just targeting the marks, you will get endless examples of candidates scoring 140 plus in mocks, but not able to qualify for prelims. And also candidates who are who keep on scoring around 50, 45 in mocks, they get through prelims easily. So it is not a kind of a red line. Okay? Human geography, Shrishma, no. For Shrishma, for the portion of prelims, please don't pay much attention to the portion of population, settlement, etc. The basic ideation that you get, more than sufficient. The basic idea, not more than that. If you are a tablet student, Vivek, then for prelims, I would suggest to you that cover the portion of the tablet. In tablet, you have a very detailed lecture which is provided. Just cover it up. And then after that, revise it. Without revision, it is as good as not reading it at all. Okay? In wetlands and Ramsar, only the new additions, only that needs to be covered. The basic NCERT should be covered, not the state ones. The basic NCERTs, if you are covering, then that is, Athira, that is more than sufficient. Yes, Dinakaran, it can easily be covered after the prelims exam. Okay, so that is where we'll restrict the session for today. I hope that this gave you some amount of idea about how to focus on your geography preparation. Please restrict yourself to that, and wishing you all the best for the forthcoming prelims examination. Keep your preparation sharpened, keep your concentration to the point. These are the final days which will determine how you spend your next year. So with that, I end the session. See you again tomorrow for the various different other strategic sessions for environment, ecology, and science and tech. That will be all from my side. Thank you and goodbye.